On April 19, 1776, the Congress appointed a committee to examine and ascertain the value of several species of gold and silver coins and propose a system of coinage to be adopted by the United States. In September, Thomas Jefferson submitted a report proposing a new coinage system, the first ever to be based upon a decimal system so as to make the mathematics of transactions much easier than ever before. At the time, the coins in the U.S. were all foreign. Transacting with them was difficult because they were all of different weights and compositions, so the need for a new and standardized money system could be easily recognized. Jefferson recommended that the new standard follow the three simple criteria. 1. The unit of money be convenient in size to be applied as a measure to the common monetary transactions of life. 2. That its parts and multiples be in an easy proportion to each other so as to facilitate the money arithmetic. And 3. That the unit and its parts or divisions be so nearly of the same value of some of the other existing known coins that the people should be able to easily adapt to the new system. It was not until 1792 that the new mint was officially authorized, but the system adopted was very close to what Jefferson recommended in 1776. Here is what Jefferson proposed. The Spanish dollar was widely used in the colonies and thus was familiar to all. Many agreements were made based upon this unit, and so the people would be used to using it as the standard of value measurement. Later, in 1792, the dollar would be defined as 371 4/16 grains of standard silver, which contained about 7/10 of an ounce of fine silver. The British pound, by contrast, was 4 to 5 times that value, and was a little awkward for common people to use as the basis for transactions. Jefferson proposed that the high-value coin be a $10 piece made of gold. The weight of gold to be used in this coin would be about 2/3 of the weight of silver contained in the dollar, because the common ratio between the value of gold and silver was 15 to 1. Thus, a $10 coin would have half a troy ounce of gold in it, or thereabouts, and this was to be the highest unit of currency. The important thing to note here is that it was to be gold to manage the size and the weight. Silver was known to be much more durable than gold for coinage, and so silver would have been the better choice, except for the sheer size of the coin that it would have had to have been if it had been made from silver. Fortunately, because the value of the coin, it was not expected to circulate much, and so gold was a logical choice. Think about that for a moment. $10 at that time was such a large amount that it was not expected to be used much in transactions. As a matter of fact, in Jefferson's recommendation to Congress, he referred to an $80 horse. Jefferson, being a wealthy landowner and not a commoner, probably had good taste in horses, and so you can see how $80, or roughly 4 ounces of gold, could have been considered a very large expense. Something like that might be the equivalent today of buying a very nice high-end car. The next lower value coin would have been the standard, or the dollar, which I've already discussed. This was followed by a recommendation for several fractional silver coins, a half, a 2/10 coin, and a 1/10 coin. We are all familiar with the half dollars and dimes. The 2/10 coin was not adopted, but instead was selected to be a quarter of a dollar. Finally, Jefferson recommended that having even smaller coin would be useful because it would reduce the cost of smaller items. Thus, he recommended a 5/100th copper piece and a 1/100th copper piece. Think about this for a moment. As small as the silver dime was, it still was not small enough to be convenient for daily transactions, and so copper coins were needed. So why is all this important to us? Well, let's think about this a little and put our past world and our possible future world into perspective. Jefferson knew, based on experience, that in order to support commerce, the coins needed would range from as large as 1/2 ounce $10 gold coin to as small as what we've come to know as the copper penny. So let's envision the use to which each coin might have been put, and may be put to in the future. If it took 4 ounces of gold to buy a really nice horse in Jefferson's day, then what would half an ounce of gold buy in a world where there is no credit and physical metal is used again as circulating money? Well, horses today vary greatly in price, but for the most part they can cost between $5,000 and $100,000 in today's dollars. I'm assuming that Jefferson would have been a high-end horse kind of guy, so he might have had the high end in mind. To make the math easy though, and give Jefferson a little credit for thrift, let's assume that Jefferson's horse would have cost $40,000 in today's world. That would make the half-ounce gold coin the purchasing power equivalent of 5,000 of today's dollars. It's a pretty big number, and one I'm sure you'll have a hard time wrapping your head around. But if you do the math and estimate what it would take to replace all of today's world's paper currency with gold based on the existing gold stock, you'll calculate something very close to this value, if not double. But don't get stuck on the magnitude of the numbers. The dollar now is a very abstract concept. It doesn't really have any lasting significance because the unit has been changing and will continue to change into the future. It's the purchasing power that's important. I'm only putting it here as a reference point for your mental calculations. Obviously, this explains why the $10 gold piece in Jefferson's day did not circulate much. After all, how could it? Nobody would carry that kind of purchasing power around with them. No, the kind of coin was made for very large transactions. Today, it would be used to buy a decent motorcycle, kind of in the spirit of Jefferson's horse. Or it might be used for a small home renovation project, such as the materials needed for a small bathroom update. Labor supplied by you, of course. It might also buy you a semester worth of tuition at a state university. So what could the $1 silver coin buy? Well, it might buy you a round-trip airfare to go somewhere domestically. It might also buy you a side of grass-fed beef. It could also buy you a bicycle. To put things in perspective, this is still not a small coin. Many people cite one of the reasons why they buy silver as being that the average person won't be able to afford gold when the credit market collapses. Well, that's absolutely true and a very good point. What you have to consider, though, is that a dollar coin may represent anywhere from a couple of days to a week or more of after-tax income depending on who you are. This is by no means a small sum of money. I doubt that many people will be in a position to carry around with them that kind of money on a day-to-day basis. As a side note, this is why it is so much easier to find old high-grade dollar coins than to find high-grade fractionals. The dollar coins were not carried around as much and therefore tended not to wear as quickly. So this is why Jefferson knew that people would need fractional coins. A dollar in his day was big money to a common person. So he recommended to Congress that as small as a $10th silver coin be minted. What can this coin be expected to buy? Well, for starters, a nice meal at a decent restaurant. I'm not talking about McDonald's here. The silver dime would be too large a coin for that. No, I'm talking about a porterhouse steak, potato side, glass of wine, and dessert, for one, of course. The silver dime can also buy a large bottle of good whiskey. It could buy a day or two worth of groceries or a tank of gasoline. Now, we can start to see why Jefferson wanted this type of coin to be made. It's a unit of value that's good for single transactions that you and I can associate with day-to-day expenses. This explains why dimes tended to wear out quickly. Because they were such a convenient denomination for transactions, they tended to circulate very quickly among the population. And one of the reasons why these coins were so valuable was because we didn't have the system of paper money and credit that we do today. The paper money and credit basically expands the currency supply. Back then, silver and gold was scarce. And still, Jefferson did not think that the dime was small enough to support commerce. That's why he recommended making some copper coins. His copper penny would have been small enough to buy a loaf of bread or a cut of chicken. Maybe a pint of beer at a tavern could be had for a penny. You get the idea. Jefferson knew that even a $0.1 silver coin would still be too large for most transactions. If there was no copper coinage introduced, then it would have been the equivalent of requiring the population to walk around with what is the equivalent of a bunch of $50 bills today. Even the humble penny, a couple of hundred years ago, was a pretty respectable coin. Otherwise, the founders wouldn't have gone through the expense of introducing it. So the basic point I'm trying to make here is this. We acquire gold and we acquire silver, most of us because we don't trust the paper currency and credit system. In the event of a systemic failure, it will be very good to have some silver. Just the same, in the event of a currency and credit system failure, it won't be the full ounce coins or rounds that circulate the most. It will probably be the smaller denomination coins. You're probably going to want to have some of these on hand. But that's just my thought. I'd welcome your opinion. Please feel free to post, and let's discuss it.